Yes.
Are you using wrong mind and ego synonymously? You don't have the word ego up there.
Yes, yes. This would be the ego thought system, the wrong mind. Yes. Okay. Are there any other questions about the amnesia and the forgetfulness, so that we all forget that we made up this world, and then we write a theology saying that there's a God that created this world. And it fits very neatly into the ego thought system, because this God has many faces. And if you read the Bible, you'll see the many faces. You know, sometimes he's angry, sometimes he's not, sometimes he's merciful. And you have to always be careful that you're not going to get him on a bad day. Because if you do, you might get the full wrath thrown at you, you know. And he's done some pretty wrathful things if you read the Bible. So that he's a multi-faced God who's very unstable. And so that I'm always in a state of quasi-fear and uncertainty, because I have to placate this God, and I'm really not sure how to go about placating him, because he can change his demands moment to moment.
I think it's important to understand that this dynamic holds whether you believe in God or not, whether you believe in a formal God, in other words, whether you're an atheist or not. Everybody walks this earth in terror, whether you're always aware of it or not, because you never know when a car may come, you know, hurtling forth and kill you, when a fatal disease will strike you, when all your money will be lost in a stock market crash, or your wonderful plans may be ruined because of a storm, etc. So that whether you believe in a God who will punish you or not, that dynamic, that guilt always demands punishment, and you'll be afraid of that punishment, holds with everyone who's in this world. Right? Because what happens once the projection occurs in which this world is made, and we forget where we came from, we take with us that dynamic of sin, guilt, and fear, but we forget where it came from.
Maybe I should put that on the board then, that guilt demands punishment.
Okay.
I'll stick that over here.
One of the dynamics of the ego thought system, when Gloria was talking about the three amnesias, this really is where that comes from. That once you make your separation thought real, which means you make the thought of sin real or guilt real, you must always do two things, and there are no exceptions to that. You will deny that you've done it, and then what you have repressed, you'll project out. Because you have denied that the sin or the guilt is in you, you will not know where the projection came from. In other words, when we first separate from God and make the original split mind, we forget that there is a God. We think that we are God. Right? When we split off from the Holy Spirit or the right mind, we forget that there is another choice, and all we are involved with is what we have projected to. Right? What we have projected from we don't know about anymore because we have repressed it. And then finally, when we project out the contents of the wrong-minded box and make up a world, we then do what we have is the third amnesia. We forget where these thoughts, where these fears come from. And we believe that we're afraid because of something external that might befall us. Right? And everybody in this world shares in this insane belief system. My anxiety, my fear, my depression comes from something that I believe is external to me. Remember also that in this system, our personal body is also outside of our mind. So it's not only that your body is outside of the guilt in my mind, but my body is outside of the guilt in my mind. So we all walk around like Chicken Little, terrified that the sky will come down crashing on our heads. Right? Whether we think that literally, or we think it's the ozone layer, or we think it's going to be a meteor shower, or we think it's going to be AIDS is right around the corner, or we think it's old age, or we think that there's going to be a financial disaster impending, or whatever it is. But because we have forgotten what we have projected, we forget that the real source of our fear is our belief in our own guilt, that we've separated from God and he will destroy us. It is our guilt that is the ultimate and only cause of all of our pain and all of our suffering. Because the world that we perceive to be outside of us is unreal. It is not there. The reason that I am quaking in terror during a nightmare is not because there's a man chasing me with a knife. There's no man chasing me with a knife. That is a symbol of a guilt thought in my mind. But as long as I'm asleep, I will think I'm afraid because there's a man chasing me with a knife. When I awaken from the dream and I analyze the dream, I could then understand that the man with the knife, again, was a projection or a symbol of some deep guilt within myself I was not aware of. That's exactly the same model that Jesus is asking us to use with our waking experiences, which are also dreams. We think we're afraid of all kinds of things that seem to be external to us, but all of these are the defenses against what we really are afraid of, namely the guilt in our mind that tells us we should be punished. And of course, the guilt that's in our mind is also a projection, is also made up, right? Because we never really separated from God in the first place. So that the whole thing is just layer upon layer upon layer of defenses. Each one is a defense against a prior illusion, which is a defense against a prior illusion. We keep going back and back. And ultimately, as we'll see later on this afternoon, in the real world, we understand that everything has been made up. Not only the external world, which Jesus describes as an hallucination, but the thought system that gave rise to the external world. Everything is made up, and everything is a defense against the remembrance of who we truly are as Christ.